P.T. Logan's 5 Minutes of Terror. Twisted, troubling tales to send a chill up your spine.
They'll stay like that. Jill pointed at the man across from her. "That man's making a face, Mommy," she said, tugging on her mother's sleeve. Her mother, who was reading a book like she always did on the subway, looked up. And when she did, the strange man in the hooded sweatshirt turned his gaze to the window, even though they were going through a tunnel and you couldn't see anything but darkness. "He's not making a face," Jill's mother said quietly, returning to her book. Jill looked at the man and frowned. He was making a face. She continued to stare at the man for a good 10 seconds, and sure enough, when her mom wasn't paying attention, he slowly turned to look at her. And then he crossed his eyes and stuck out his tongue. "See?" Jill exclaimed, grabbing her mother's arm again. This time Jill's mom looked up right away, but once again, the man whipped his head to one side and stared out the window. "Jill, stop annoying me. I'm trying to finish this book." Jill looked at her mom's book cover. On it was a woman with a red jacket staring at a forest. It was called Frozen Stiff, and it didn't look all that exciting to Jill. "But he was making a face," she argued. "Well, he's not now." Jill's mom went back to her book. This time, when the man turned to her and made a face, Jill didn't tell her mother. Instead, she decided to copy the man's silly expression. She crossed her eyes and stuck out her tongue. She expected the man to stop making the face, to say something, do something, anything, but he didn't. He just kept on making that silly face. So, Jill did the same. And she would have kept on doing it until the final stop on the subway line. Their stop, except her mom looked up. But not at the man, at her. "Jill, stop making that face." Jill relaxed her eyes, or at least she tried to. It took her brain a few seconds to relay the message to her eyes and mouth. And even after she managed to uncross her eyes, they didn't feel quite right. They felt tired and sore. "It's not me, Mom, it's him," Jill exclaimed, pointing across the subway car. The man was staring out the window again. Of course he was. "I don't care," Jill's mom said, sounding annoyed now. "You know what happens if you make that face too often?" Jill shook her head. "No." "It'll stay that way. Your eyes will stay crossed forever." Jill frowned. She was pretty sure that wasn't true, but her eyes were hurting a little. "I don't know, Jill. They will stay that way. Don't make that face again." Jill crossed her arms over her chest and stared straight ahead, not wanting to look at the man again. They won't stay like that. It's impossible. And yet, Jill didn't make the face again. She didn't look at the man either. But he wasn't done with her, apparently. Out of the corner of her eye, she saw the man lean forward in his seat. "Don't look," she told herself. "Don't look at him." But it was impossible not to. And that was exactly what the man wanted. Jill slowly turned her head in the man's direction. Then he smiled and raised his hands. What the man did next was so horrifying that Jill was frozen stiff with fear. The man covered his face with his palms, as if he were playing a game of peekaboo. And Jill wished he was. But that wasn't the case. Instead, the man was doing something else, something disgusting and terrifying. She heard 2 audible pops, like someone cracking gum, and then the man pulled his hands back from his face. Between thumb and forefinger of each hand was a single eye. The man stuck out his tongue and placed his glass eyes on the railing between him and Jill and her mother. He cocked his head to one side, then tilted the eyes inward so that they were crossed as they stared blankly in Jill's direction. The train stopped abruptly, and the man felt his way blindly toward the door. As he passed Jill, who was still unable to move, he leaned in close and whispered, "They'll stay like that." And then the blind man in the hood left the subway car, leaving Jill and his glass eyes behind him.
P.T. Logan's 5 Minutes of Terror. Twisted, troubling tales to send a chill up your spine.